You're listening to Conferences Online Allergy from Children's Mercy Hospitals and Clinics in Kansas City, Missouri. Today is March 19, 2012, and I'm your host, Dr. Jay Portnoy. Our topic today, Getting Published, Part 1. Our presenter is, yours truly, Dr. Jay Portnoy. I'm the Chief of the Section of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology at Children's Mercy Hospitals and Clinics. We need to get started. So welcome back to Conferences Online Allergy from Children's Mercy Hospitals and Clinics in Kansas City. We're going to shift gears now and talk about getting published. That's an important thing. We work at an academic center. I gave this talk about 4 years ago, so it's time to talk about it again. These are my disclosures and my learning objectives. So, publishing information, we of course refer to articles all of the time, but why publish? Why should any of us bother to publish information in the medical literature? Well, obviously it's a way of sharing our knowledge. If I know something about how to manage a patient that you don't know, I can keep it a secret and I can be better than you, I suppose, but that doesn't really improve the overall care of patients, because maybe if you're aware of this thing that I've learned, then you can add to it and then I can learn something and we can go back and forth and learn from each other and continue to augment that knowledge. And so increasing knowledge overall is very helpful. And that requires sharing of knowledge, so that I need to know what you're doing. You need to know what I'm doing. If you think about it, back in the 15 and 1600s, scientific progress was sort of a covert field. Scientists would get a grant from a benefactor, they would do research, they would find out new things, and they would keep it a secret. It was their special thing, and maybe once in their life they would write a treatise, a great big book that would be a summation of all of the information that they received, but there was no systematic approach to sharing knowledge. I'm thinking of like Kepler, who wrote the Starry Messenger, or maybe that was Galileo. Isaac Newton, who wrote the Principia Mathematica. It was like his ultimate tome, but he didn't publish anything before that. He just waited and put it all out at one time, and then there was this massive thing. And so really, by doing it that way, you're not helping other scientists. It wasn't until medical or scientific journals became popular in, I think it was in the 1700s, that sharing of scientific knowledge became a more routine way, and the accepted way of sharing that knowledge was by publishing in scientific journals like the British Medical Journal and things like that. And so some of these early journals were places where members of the scientific academies could send their knowledge. I know Charles Darwin published in the scientific journals that were available at the time. He didn't wait until the Origin of a Species to publish anything. Now, that was obviously one of his major works, but there were other articles that were published before that were incremental, that told people what was going on, what people were thinking about. If you work at an academic institution, then academic promotion is contingent on publication. It's really just a way of demonstrating that you've done scientific research and that the research you've done was of high enough quality that it could be accepted by your peers and published in a journal. And that is used as prima facie evidence that you are scientifically doing something valuable for the scientific community. And so publication is used as a criterion for promotion academically. You get prestige, you get satisfaction, and also it's a way of getting grants and funding. A granting agency likes to see that the grants that they've provided have led to publications in the scientific literature. If I give you a grant and you never publish anything, then I feel like my grant's not being very wisely spent, and I'm likely to not want to continue funding you. So most funding agencies like to see that the recipient of their grants have published results. What should you publish? And I've been a little bit critical of the kinds of things that have been published over the more recently in particular. Obviously, if you do original research, you randomized controlled trial and you find some information that's new that hasn't been published before, that's probably the best kind of stuff to publish, because that tells other people that you've come up with this new information. In medicine, there was also a very strong impetus to publish case reports. I had this really interesting patient, and I did these tests, and I found out something interesting about the patient. Maybe I figured out what was actually wrong with them, and I'd seen other people with the same condition. And many of the syndromes that we see, like the George syndrome, were just the result of a case report or several cases that looked similar, and so the authors published it. And that is a well-respected thing for physicians to do, is to write case reports. Many of the current scientific journals are not as accepting of case reports, largely because they're not well cited. If I write a case report of an interesting thing, it's not likely that a lot of other authors are going to cite that article. And I'll mention later, there's this thing called citation index, which is a measure of how important a journal is in the scientific community. If the citation index is not very high, then the journal is not felt to be as prestigious, and therefore scientists tend not to want to publish their stuff in that journal. And case reports are just not as heavily cited, so that it becomes a less prestigious journal if it publishes case reports. Most journals do like review articles. This is an article where you review a topic, you get all of the literature about that topic, and then describe what it all showed. It's sort of a synthesis of what is known at the time about the article. And there's different kinds of review articles. Some of them are just more like editorials. I choose the articles I want to review, and then I write the article that says what I want it to say. And then there are systematic reviews that are done more as protocols, and those are almost like scientific experiments of themselves. And they tend to be a little bit less biased. Editorials and rostrums tend to be more opinion pieces, and an editorial is a document that usually accompanies a different article. Somebody writes an article about a controversial topic, sublingual immunotherapy, for example, does it work or not, and then maybe somebody has an opinion about whether that article was done well and what it means to the medical profession, so they would write an editorial in which they would sort of put it into context and describe in their opinion about what the article means. And then if you see an article that you think has some issues, or that you want to call attention to some flaws or some important things about it, you can certainly write a letter to the editor. Keep in mind, a letter to the editor is considered to be a citable document. Therefore, it's the same thing as submitting an original publication. It's citable, it goes through peer review, and it's not like just writing correspondence. It actually is a peer-reviewed document, just like any other manuscript that's submitted for publication. So letters to the editor aren't just letters. They're not just informal things. Well, where do you want to publish your article? The best place is to publish it in what's called a peer-reviewed journal. What that means is that the article is received by the journal, and then instead of just saying, okay, we're going to publish it because we need stuff to fill up our pages, we're going to send it out to other reviewers who are experts in your field and see what they think about it. So your peers review your article. And in a sense, you can think of this as, it seems like it should be biased against your article. If I'm competing with somebody in a certain field and I send in a manuscript and my competitor reviews it, he might give some very negative things about it, trying to keep me down. But the reality is, as critical as those reviews are, the editor has the final say in whether it's accepted or not. Most of the time, the reviews that are received from peers are constructive and helpful, and in fact, most physicians take pride in their reviews and feel that doing a shoddy job of reviewing it reflects badly on themselves. And so it's a function of professionalism. The fact that it's been peer-reviewed sort of vets it and says that this is actually a valid scientific area of study, and that it was done in an appropriate way. And if there are problems, it also calls those problems to the attention of the editor, who, as I mentioned, makes the final determination about whether the article is accepted for publication or not. The editor may not have expertise in the area of the article, and so that's why having comments from other colleagues, peers who are experts in that is very helpful for the editor when trying to make a decision about accepting it or not. So you might want to send it. Definitely want to send it to a peer-reviewed journal. Most journals accept online submissions now. Paper submissions is sort of an anachronism. I don't know of any journals now that accept a paper submission. You pretty much have to send it online. Most of the time you want these journals to be Medline cited by the National Library of Medicine, which is Medline or PubMed as it's commonly called. A journal has to meet certain publication requirements in order to be PubMed certified. And I'm not sure exactly what those qualifications are. They have to be cited by a certain number of journals. They have to have a certain volume of publications, and a certain quality of publication has to occur. Excuse me, I'm getting a phone call. Hello? Yeah, I'm on conference right now. I will pick her up. Bye. Sorry. I feel like that politician, who was it, Giuliani, who got a phone call while he was giving a speech and he answered it. It was my daughter. And then citation index is just a measure of how many times articles that are published in your journal are cited by other articles. The more times your journal articles are cited, the more prestigious your journal becomes. Authors want to publish their articles in journals that get cited a lot, because then their articles are likely to be read by other scientists. Not all journals are peer-reviewed. Some are industry-sponsored. It's not always easy to tell which journals are industry-sponsored as opposed to being peer-reviewed. An industry-sponsored journal might be a report of a symposium on some drug or some disease, symposium on asthma, acute asthma management, sponsored by, and there's almost always a sponsored by, and then it'll list the pharmaceutical company or the industry sponsor of that particular symposium, and that is a paid advertisement for that pharmaceutical company. I would just consider it to be that, even though the people who write the articles might be thought leaders and the topics might be very interesting, and then most of them might be very informative and useful information, you still have to consider that this is a publication that was paid for by a pharmaceutical company or some company that is usually a for-profit company. Maybe, I guess if it's not for profit, maybe the bias won't be so much. But it's not peer reviewed. That means that they don't send it out to other peer reviewers and editorially select which articles to publish. Instead, they've commissioned articles that are on specific topics, and the publisher already knows what they want those articles to conclude, and they tend to be more advertisements for the company. And you can recognize it because it'll be about a symposium, or it'll be a supplement to a journal, and it'll have who sponsored it. And sometimes you have to look very, very closely to figure out who sponsored it, because they don't always try to make it very clear. But you will see that a company sponsored it, and then just assume that it's a paid advertisement for that company. Society news, I mean, the news that the College of Allergy or the Academy of Allergy puts out is a society newsletter. That's not peer review, but it's still a nice thing to do. A lot of other people in your profession will read about it, and it's just good news to have. And if you have information that you think is of interest to your colleagues, but it's not really a scientific journal type of publication, you can send it to the Society News, and perhaps they would be interested in publishing that. And of course, you can always write a book chapter too. Book chapters are peer reviewed. There is usually an editorial committee that reviews it. It's usually a committee. It's not just one person. So I would consider that committee to be peers. I would also consider that many times they do send it out to other experts in the field to peer review it. It's technically not a peer review type of thing, but textbooks and other books in allergy are considered to be a prestigious thing and are worthwhile sending it to if you're ever asked to do that. One thing that I didn't put on is online journals now and online books like Up to Date, which Dr. Sirota, you wrote a couple of articles for Up to Date. That is actually a peer review resource, because the articles that are submitted to Up to Date get reviewed by other people who are the peers, and they send their results back to the editors who request revisions and so on. So it does go through a formal peer review process. I would consider it to be a sort of a peer review. It's not technically, but it does meet what I would consider to be the criteria for peer review. So I've mentioned impact factor. If A is the number of times an article is published in, let's say, 2006 and 2007, and it was cited, the number of times an article published in that was cited by indexed journals during 2008. So you take a year like 2008 and you look at the previous 2 years, because you're not going to cite something that's being published right now, because it's always going to be something in the past. But in the last 2 years, how many times an article has been cited by another article that is indexed? And then B is the total number of citable items published by a journal during those 2 years. A citable item is usually an article, a review, a proceedings, or a note. But for some reason, they're not considering editorials or letters to the editor in this particular definition. So I guess even though you can cite a letter to the editor or an editorial, in the impact factor, they're not counting those. So if A is the number of times it's cited and B is the number of citable items, the impact factor is just A over B. So the more times an article is cited, the higher the impact factor. If you publish a lot of highly citable articles, your impact factor will be much higher. And in fact, these are the top 5 most important or highest impact factor journals in the field of allergy. Here's the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology is the top one with an impact factor of 9.27. And they have taken a great deal of pride in having a high index or impact factor. That means that on average, each article published in the Journal of Allergy is cited over 9 times by other articles. That's a lot of times. There's also the European Journal Allergy, Clinical and Experimental Allergy, Contact Dermatitis I don't think of as an allergy journal, but perhaps it is, and then Clinical Reviews in Allergy and Immunology. And I don't have a clue what an eigenvector score is. And this is actually the number of articles that are published. The Journal of Allergy not only has the highest number of cited articles per journal, but they also publish the most articles in any journal, 336 articles per year. That's a lot of articles that the journal publishes. Allergy is maybe half as many. Journal of Asthma, Clinical, and then Pediatric Allergy and Immunology. Okay, so you want to publish an article. Well, one reason why an allergy fellow might want to publish an article is because you have to in order to meet the requirements for allergy fellowship programs. The ACGME RRC likes to see allergy fellows publish articles. They will at times accept an abstract or an oral or poster presentation at an annual meeting as evidence of scholarly activity, but they really, really prefer that allergy fellows each publish at least one manuscript related to a scientific project that they've been involved with at some point during their fellowship. So it's a really good idea to try to strive for that as an outcome if you can. What you want to do initially is to choose a topic. What do you want to write about? If you've been doing a scientific research project, then obviously you're going to write about that project. It's also reasonable to do a review article. I find review articles to be a great way to learn a lot about a particular topic. If I want to learn about atopic dermatitis, what better way than to write a review article about atopic dermatitis? So I'm going to end up learning a tremendous amount of information and getting an article published as a result. You also want to choose an audience. Is your audience geared at the cutting-edge science group in the laboratory? That's going to be a different kind of article than writing it for maybe just the allergist in clinical practice. Maybe you want to get more clinical information. Laboratory people might want more basic science information or technical information about how studies were done. You might even be writing for a more, like a primary care audience, family practice or general pediatrics, in which case the information that you put in the article might be geared more towards that group. How do you even identify that this condition is present in your patient? From a general practice perspective. So you have to gear the audience, the article to the audience that you're writing it for. You need to choose a journal. If you're going to write to the general pediatric audience, you might want to send it to the Journal of Pediatrics or Pediatrics Journal. If you're going to write it to the allergist, then you might want to send it to the Annals of Allergy or the Journal of Allergy. The Journal of Allergy, by the way, has recently acknowledged that most of the articles it publishes are pretty much geared towards basic science and researchers. That's how they get such a high impact factor, because scientists and researchers tend to cite each other's articles, and so the citation index is very high. Clinical allergists might be very interested in clinical articles, but they themselves don't write a lot of articles that would cite those clinical articles. So clinical articles tend to be much lower citation index receivers. But for that reason, the Journal of Allergy has almost become unreadable to the non-basic scientist. If you've tried to pick up a recent article or issue of the Journal of Allergy, it's very hard to read. There's a few review articles that you can kind of get your hands on and understand, but some of the basic cytokine and genetics and so on are just so dense and difficult that if you're not in that field, you can't really get your head around it. And so the Academy of Allergy has recently commissioned a new journal, the Clinical Journal of Allergy, and I guess I don't know what they're going to call it, but it's supposed to be geared towards clinicians. So it will accept clinical information, and I think of it as the Academy's version of the Annals of Allergy, which has always been a clinical journal. So if you're writing about patients or patient care type of issues, then those would be the kinds of journals that you would submit to, rather than the Journal of Allergy, which would be more for basic science or cutting-edge science stuff. You need to review the instructions for the authors, and then I would suggest that you develop an outline. So let's talk about that. I want to write an article in a journal. How do I start? What I suggest that you do is you write an outline. Start with an outline. You figure out what you want the title of the article to be, and then you outline the text, and then these are the different things that you also will have in your journal. You'll have an introduction, a methods section, a results section, and a discussion section. If you're writing a review article, then your outline would have all of the different topics that you're going to review in it. And I always start with an outline first as a framework, because it kind of organizes my thoughts, and then I go and search for the information to fill in that outline. So, as an example, I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you a program called EndNote. Are you all familiar with EndNote? Have you seen EndNote?
No, it is. I haven't used it yet.
You have. You have? You have. So the second-year fellows are familiar with it. First-year fellows, maybe not as much. So I've gone ahead and installed EndNote on this computer. This is EndNote version X5, and that's the version that I would suggest that you get. EndNote is a bibliography management software. It helps you manage all of your references. And in fact, let me get a document that I'm currently writing. It's under practice parameters. You see it? Parameters. Here. Yeah, I got too many things here. So here is a document that I am writing on cockroaches. Okay. First thing you'll notice, this is how I do it. I start with the first document, Cockroach 1.0, and then every time I make modifications to it, I just save it as a new version, 2.0, 2.1, 3.0, 4.0. And then, depending on how big of a change I've made, if I've spent a lot of time making big changes, I increase it by a whole number. If I've just gone in and changed a few paragraphs and modified a few little things, then I'll just make it like a 2.1 instead of a whole jump. And you can, go up as high as you want, so there's not really a limitation to that. So if you look at Cockroach 1.0, that's going to be the very first article that or document that I started with. So this is just a brief outline. It's got a little bit of text in it, but not a whole lot. It's a fairly short document. And one thing that I really like is the outline view. You might actually think about using outline view when you start outlining your document. So you're familiar with outline view. It's your friend. Make it your friend. When you do outline view, what that means is that you can promote and demote different paragraphs and sections. So, for example, overview of cockroaches, I've made that a level 2. I could make it a level 1 by just selecting it and moving it forward, and move it back, and so on. So that allows you to keep everything organized. You can also double-click and collapse it down. So now I can see just the large sections like that. And so when you want to write a document, this is a practice parameter about cockroaches. I'm going to overview cockroaches, describe their allergens, where are they found, what are their health effects, then how do you avoid them, and then the references. Okay, so that's my outline. Within each outline, I'm going to have other things. I'm going to have like a little paragraph here that describes it. In this particular case, it's a summary statement. So I just start to fill it in with information. You can see how short this particular document is. It's only about 4,000 words long. Okay. That was an early version of the cockroach practice parameter. Let's go to the more recent version, version 5.0. This is after it's been worked on. It's now 23,000 words. It's a bit long, 62 pages long. Okay, so I've filled it in now. This is the cover page, the disclaimers, and the authors, and so on. This is not the same kind of thing as a journal article, but you can see that this is about the most complicated type of article that anyone would ever want to write. And yet if you go to outline view, you can actually show just 5 levels of outline, and here's the whole document. Now it's really easy to see you can get a sense of what you're doing. You know, how does this document flow? You've got glossary, preface, executive summary, allergens, health effects, evaluation, exposure, immunotherapy, and then this thing called unplaced abstracts. This is something that you can do that you need to do cautiously, and you do it using EndNote. So let me go back to EndNote. EndNote is a bibliography software. It allows you to get information from online and put it into a library. This is a library called Environment. I could create another library and call it whatever I want. Well, let's do that. Let's create a new library. And we're going to call this library my EndNote library, just because that's the default. Okay? There's nothing there. Let's say I wanted to find out about cockroaches. If I know the author's name, I can do author. If I know the year, I can do year. I can do title. I don't know the title. I'm just going to do cockroach. I want to learn about cockroaches. And I know that I want to look for all of the articles that were published in 2008 on cockroaches. Okay, because you can type whatever parameters you want. You can do year. You can do it by title, volume, issue, page number, author, and so on, or any field you want. So really, it's extremely flexible. And when you do this, you just click search, and it says that it found 52 references in PubMed. This is searching the National Library of Medicine, 52 articles that have the word cockroach that were published in 2008. That's pretty fast, isn't it? So click OK. And what does it do? It should, in just 1 second, show me all the articles, all 58 of them. Now, if I didn't put 58, it would say there's 23,000. I don't really want it to download 23,000, so you kind of have to watch what you're doing. Okay, so here's all the articles on cockroach. And, in fact, they all have something to do with cockroach. Diagnostic imaging and terrestrial invertebrates, the hissing cockroach. That's probably not something I need to worry about with cockroach allergy. German cockroach Blah-G2, peptide fragments. Well, maybe that's kind of importance to learn a little bit more about the cockroach allergens. So let me open it up, and you'll see that it has the authors. It's the last author, comma, and then the first and then the initial of the author. And they're listed in order. It's published in 2008. Here's the full title. Here's the journal. Here's the volume. There's an EPUB, so it's actually available as an e-publication. Almost all journals nowadays are. It's the Korean Journal of Parasitology. Here's the DOI, which is a special code that you can use to find articles when you do literature searches. It's also got, well, I don't know why it's got that, but there's a thing called accession number. Accession number is a really important number to become familiar with. It's a unique number that's given by the National Library of Medicine to every article that's published in the medical literature. So when an article is published, it's assigned a number. I don't know if it's sequential or whatever, but it's assigned a number. This must be the 19,127,330th publication since they started assigning accession numbers to these medical journals, the articles. The reason this is important is if I want to refer to an article by a unique identifier, the accession number is a unique identifier. The DOI is also a unique identifier, 2008-46. You can see that's the year, the issue, the volume, the issue, and the page. And so that's a unique identifier also. This is just a single number, though. I find that to be very helpful. Keywords. There's an abstract. You can read full abstract. You can read notes. There's a URL to PubMed, so you can go to the PubMed site and see it. There's how you can reach the author. And if you have a PDF of the document, you click here and you can attach a file. And it will automatically import it into this library in your document. You will actually have the full PDF of the document. I find that to be really helpful. Okay, so I've got this article and that looks pretty good. I'm going to save it, but I'm going to save it into a group. This is a group called allergens. Okay, if I've got over 3,000 articles in my environment in the library. That's too many articles to keep track of, so there's got to be a way of grouping them together into common themes. In this case, this is something that deals with allergens, so you just have to copy it. And it should copy over into allergens, but I guess it's not. Sequence diversity of Law G4. Why isn't it going into allergens? Maybe it needs another group. Let's see. We'll call this one exposure. And so the cockroach allergen levels associated with cockroach-specific IgE. Okay, there you go. I can copy right into that. I guess there have to be two groups in order for it to do it. Anti-cockroach IgE associated with early wheeze. That's clinical effects. I can create another group, health effects. And then I can do copy. Oh, I don't know why it's doing that.
Maybe if you don't select, if the group's not selected, like go back and click on exposure. Or, yeah. Now trust it. There you go. Like once it's highlighted, it went to it.
Oh, okay. Okay, new pheromones, parasite wasp, embodiment of aggregation, fungal, symbiosis, sex, allergenicity of glutathione, sequence. Most of these allergens, that's kind of an allergen thing. So what I do is I search for it, and then I just start going through these and see which of these look like they would be reasonable for my article that I'm writing. And I copy those into the groups. And the groups can either be logical groups like this, or if you have an outline, you can just create a group for each section in your outline and then copy those articles into that section. You don't have to read each article right now. Right now you're just kind of searching and parsing the different articles into there. If you really know a lot about the medical literature of cockroaches, you can just type author's name. I know Ginger Chu has written a lot of articles about cockroaches, so I'll just type Chu, G. And I don't care when, I just want cockroaches by Ginger Chu. And that has to be PubMed. So G, I don't care what date. me see how many articles the Ginger Chu wrote. She wrote 10 articles on cockroach. But I know these are all going to be relevant articles. Okay, so there's measurement of cockroach allergen. That's exposure. There's neighborhood differences in exposure. There's determinants of exposure. There's mouse and cockroach allergens in dust. That's exposure. Blood G2 levels in dust. That's exposure. Cockroach allergy exposure in Polish children. That's exposure. Deteriorating houses. Cockroach allergen levels. Okay, so now I've got all of these articles that were written by Ginger Chu. These are articles on that, and now you can see how it's easy to do your search and to organize them. Okay, so what do you do with these articles once you've got them? Well, one thing you can do is to paste them into a Word document. If you've got a, if you're not really sure where they go, what you can do is you can paste them into the document under a column called Unplaced Abstracts. Okay, what I like to do is I like to get the abstract of the article, which is right here, down in here, go down here and just copy this abstract, and then paste it into the Word document. Just paste it right here. That's the abstract, and then I want to remember which article that came from. So I have to go back to EndNote and close this. And if I copy this reference, copy, and then I go back to the Word document, what it will allow me to do is to paste it into the Word document. I'm going to paste it. What it does is it pastes a temporary citation into the document. In this case, the first author's last name, the year it was published, and then the accession number. And then it automatically numbers it. This is reference number 1. And it turns out that that's the first reference. And then if I go down here to the bibliography, it's not showing the reference 1. That's closed. There's Donahue. There's the reference right there. These are other references that are already in the document. But you see that it just put it in there as number 1 and renumbered all of the other references. So as soon as you paste a reference in there, it automatically renumbers all the other references and keeps your bibliography formatted. This formatting, you can choose what format you want it to appear in based on the journal that you're going to publish it in. EndNote has a list of all of the different journals. Let me close this. And allows you to select which journal you want it to be published in. So you can, let's see, style, output style. So you can do it as annotated. Here's the Annals of Internal Medicine. I like that particular format. It's very similar to the Annals of Allergy. You can do Vancouver. You can do other fields. There's a whole bunch of different styles that exist. In fact, these are all the different styles of medical journals that are available. So if you know which journal you want it to be published in, you just select that journal.
Okay, so you pick the actual journal itself. Like I was writing something and they said NLM is what they wanted. So is there something for NLM or?
I don't know if there's a generic National Library of Medicine or NLM.
You just do that.
Yep, that's the National Library of Medicine, NLM. Okay, so you can go back to that and styles. There. Once you select that, then you should be able to go back to Edit, and select Output Styles, and now NLM will appear. Okay, and as soon as I do that, then I can go back to my document that I've already closed, and it will automatically reformat it for NLM. This is really a helpful thing, and I would suggest that you get familiar with this. Let me just finish up my slideshow because we have to close up here. So basically, you can I kind of do it that way. Most journals you submit it online. This is the Annals of Allergy online submission. If you get it, many journal articles are rejected. Don't get your feelings hurt if it's rejected. It happens. In fact, almost all of them are returned for revision, so you're not going to get it accepted the way it is when you send it in. They're going to send it back with comments from the reviewers, and the reviewers take pride in having comments to make. They will not send it back and say, looks good to me. That's not a good review. A good review will have specific recommendations or comments, things that could improve, and don't take offense at that. Look at it as an opportunity to improve your article. You get the credit for the final improved article, even though you got a lot of help from these reviewers. So the reviewers are giving you free help and making your article look better. So that's a good thing. Ideally, they're constructive. They improve the manuscript. You don't have to agree with them. If you think this guy is off base, then just say so to the editor. The editor has the final decision. So if you disagree, the editor might agree with you and not with the reviewer. So you're not pleasing the reviewer. You're satisfying the editor. Address each comment by item, indicate changes, and be polite. Don't say, oh, you're an idiot, I don't agree with. Be polite. Thank them for their comments and consider them because they really will make your article better. If your manuscript is accepted, then that's great. Once you get that acceptance letter, copyright transfer, then you'll have to sign that. You'll get the galley proofs and be asked to review those very quickly, and then it will be published. Once it's accepted, as we are pleased to inform you that this article is accepted, as soon as that's the case, you can add it to your CV as in press until you have the actual reference itself. It's in press. So hopefully you'll have that, and if you have any questions about that, let me know. I'll be happy to talk with you about writing a publication. Any questions? Yes.
For tables or figures, does the journal generally format them to what they want, or, you know what I mean? Like, when you pick up a journal, everything looks the same. Like, all the tables and figures and stuff generally look like the same format.
They do, actually. They will, in fact, format. If you've sent in a table and it's not the format that they like, they will reformat it into their style. So you don't have to spend a tremendous amount of time getting it into just the right format. Let them do that.
Okay.
The figures have to just be reasonably, readable. And they like images, JPEGs are fine, but they have to be readable and reasonable. If they're not, then they may send it back and ask you to redo it, just so that it's more. If you can't read the words along the axis, for example, then that could be an issue. But those are usually easily resolved. If you have a tremendous amount of information, you want large tables with lots of specific information about patients, they may ask you to submit those as e-tables rather than being in the paper version, because there's only so many paper pages that a journal can publish. It will be supplementary electronic information that will be published along with it. Anyway, if you don't have a copy of EndNote, we can get one for you. The hospital can get those. If you become a member of the Joint Task Force on Practice Parameters and join a work group, then we provide EndNote for all work group members too, and it's free of charge. All right, we're going to have to stop there. This has been Conferences on Lyme Allergy from Children's Mercy. We will see you on Friday. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
This has been an ACAAI production. To learn more about Conferences on Lyme Allergy or the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology, go to www.acaai.org. See you next time.